Tata Nexon had gone down in history as the highest rated car on Global NCAP's Safer Cars for India program. Highest amongst 28 cars, no less. The 4-star crash test also spurred competition to get on board with the initiative, since there was a clear understanding that safety now mattered to the Indian buyer in all consumer segments in the car market. So after the Nexon, we had great news, with Global NCAP confirming to us that others like Mahindra or Maruti Suzuki were also now keen to achieve higher safety ratings for their cars. Yes, we are talking of the India-based behemoths and not just the global MNCs. That Tata, another Indian company, was leading this charge was extremely heartening for those of us who track this space closely. So then those 4 stars weren't enough, especially so given that Global NCAP had thrown down the gauntlet in February 2018 in a surprise announcement to the Indian automobile industry at our awards at the Delhi Auto Expo. It was no less than Max Mosley, former FIA boss and chairman of Global NCAP, who made that big declaration. He told industry executives that Global NCAP had decided to institute an award that offered a recognition and honor for any made in India 5-star crash result vehicles.
Any car built in India which can reach the 5-star standard will have that label, Global NCAP Safer Choice label.
Several car makers responded positively by going to work to try and achieve that win. The Nexon's 4-star result already proved that companies like Tata Motors had set course in that direction. But now the Nexon set out to become the first car from India by any manufacturer to aim quite literally for the stars, all 5 of them. The good news right up front for Team Tata was that the Nexon did not need to do much to go from 4 to 5 stars, and that's because the car's structural integrity and basic safety equipment was already sound.
Nexon we launched in 2017, and so when we wanted to actually up the game to go to the 5-star, we had to actually basically look at number of elements, especially related to the requirements on the front co-driver side, the requirements of the knee and the foot injury criteria for both the front passengers. And that actually took some time for us to understand and actually develop the strategies as to how to fix those areas.
Some of this also depended on the addition of certain electronics like the front passenger seatbelt reminder and occupant detection system that persuades the passenger to fasten their seatbelt.
At the beginning of the testing in India, the requirement was only a frontal crash test with certain scoring. As from this year, and starting actually the new sets of cars, we have introduced more requirements for the adult occupant protection and also different requirements for the child occupant protection. For the adult occupant protection, we have introduced changes in terms of more requirements for the 5 stars. In this case, you need at least 14 points to be achieved in the frontal crash. On top of that, you need to have seatbelt reminders for adults, for both adults in the front, passenger and driver, standard. You also need to have ABS, anti-block braking systems, as standard in the 4-channel version for all cars, all versions. And last but not least, we need to perform a side impact crash protection according to regulation 95. And the manufacturer has to pass those requirements, those technical requirements during the test.
It is important to remember that this is never just about adding these functions or systems as optional or on just one test car. For any crash test, Global NCAP always uses the base variant of any product, meaning all the functions, equipment and even structural provisions have to be standard across all variants of that car.
First, the balance of the design was achieved. But beyond that, there was a big challenge to make sure that we achieve the cost, weight and the timeline targets. The Indian customer is very sensitive to the price, and we had to maintain the excellent price positioning that we have achieved with the Nexon. To do this, we had to undergo several iterations for the crash norms as well as what happens to the occupants inside to make sure that they remain safe. And while doing this, we had to make sure that we achieve it at the most optimum, in fact, benchmark kind of costs. And this truly exemplifies the kind of engineering excellence that has gone into the Nexon.
So the plant at Ranjangaon saw yet another round of changes being implemented, with the Nexon getting the additional equipment and structural changes. It also meant new vendor orders and quick turnaround on getting those supplies. After all, the car was set to become even more capable and even safer than before. It was positive to see that these changes were brought into production well before any test was even carried out. And that's a safety win for the consumer anyway. But that test was looming, and it was the last piece of the puzzle that had to fit in. That is ahead on our series.